5,000 targets. That number has been plastered across every news headline, every Pentagon press conference, every White House statement for the past 11 days. 5,000 targets struck inside Iran. B-2 stealth bombers flying direct from Missouri, B-52s on their longest combat runs in years, F-22s, F-35s, carrier strike groups, cruise missiles, bunker busters, the full force of the most powerful military in human history, all pointed at one country in under 2 weeks. And the Pentagon says Iran's ballistic missile launches are down 90%, drone attacks down 83%, 50 ships destroyed. Their navy is functionally gone, their air defenses shredded. Supreme Leader Khamenei is dead. By every traditional military metric, this looks like a dominant performance. Except for one detail nobody in Washington wants to say plainly. Iran is still firing. Right now, today, Iran is launching missiles at Kuwait, Dubai, Saudi Arabia, U.S. bases across the region. A residential building in Bahrain was hit just yesterday. A woman was killed. Oil crossed $100 a barrel again just hours ago. And on March 10th, with over 5,000 strikes behind him, Secretary Hegseth stood at the Pentagon and announced, completely seriously, that today would be the most intense day of strikes inside Iran yet. Day 11. The most intense day. After 5,000 targets. That moment should make every thinking person stop and ask one question. What exactly did the Pentagon get wrong about Iran? That's what we're unpacking today, right here on Unlocked History Hub, and I promise you, the answer is more revealing than anything you've seen in the official briefings. If you're new to this channel, subscribe right now and hit the like button. We break down the stories behind the headlines every single time something major happens, and this one is critical. Now, let's get into it. Operation Epic Fury launched on February 28, 2026. Joint U.S.-Israeli strikes across Iran, the largest American military operation in the Middle East since the Iraq invasion of 2003. Trump announced it via an 8-minute Truth Social video at 2 in the morning. No congressional address. The stated objectives were to destroy Iran's missile infrastructure, eliminate its nuclear program, kill its naval power, and neutralize the IRGC's ability to threaten American forces for years. And to be fair, some of those goals have been partially met. Khamenei is dead. 50 naval vessels are gone. Iran's air defenses have been substantially degraded. But here is where the story gets complicated, and where I believe the Pentagon fundamentally miscalculated. The U.S. went into this war with a model in its head, a model built on the assumption that if you hit enough targets hard enough fast enough, you break the enemy's will to fight. That model worked in the Gulf War. It worked in the early stages of Iraq. It works against adversaries who rely on centralized command structures, expensive hardware, and professional military forces that stop functioning when degraded past a certain point. Iran is not that adversary. And that is what the Pentagon got wrong. Here is the number I keep coming back to. The Hudson Institute published an analysis showing Iran is on pace to fire between 4,000 and 5,000 Shahed loitering munitions in a single month of combat. A Shahed 136 drone costs between $20,000 and $50,000 to build. The interceptor missiles the U.S. and its Gulf partners use to shoot them down, Patriots, THAAD systems, cost between $1 and $5 million per shot. The Council on Foreign Relations published a direct analysis of this problem. Defenders are on the wrong side of the cost equation. Iran spends $50,000 to launch a threat. The U.S. spends $1 million to stop it. You can run that math indefinitely. And these drones have been improved. Anti-jamming antennas, electronic warfare-resistant navigation. They are harder to stop than they were a year ago. And Iran is firing them in waves specifically designed to overwhelm the defensive architecture of multiple countries at once. This is the core miscalculation. Destroying capacity is not the same as destroying will. Iran's leadership, however reorganized after Khamenei's death, has made a deliberate choice to absorb the damage and keep fighting. Iran's foreign minister told PBS on March 9th that there is no room for diplomacy while strikes continue. Those are not the words of a regime on the verge of collapse. And here is what I think is most important about Iran's strategy in this war, the part the Pentagon appears to have genuinely not anticipated. Iran never tried to defeat the United States conventionally. They knew they couldn't. Their strategy was to make the cost of this war unacceptably high for the entire global system, not just for the US, but for the Gulf states, for the world economy, for every country whose stability depends on the energy moving through the Strait of Hormuz. And in that objective, Iran is succeeding. All 6 Gulf Cooperation Council states have been hit. An Amazon Web Services data center in Dubai was damaged. Foreign policy called it possibly the first time in history that a major cloud data center was struck in wartime. Dubai International Airport was hit on day 2 and only reopened in limited capacity days later. Saudi Arabia's Ras Tanura refinery was struck. Qatar's Ras Laffan LNG facility, responsible for 20% of global liquefied natural gas production, declared force majeure, sending Asian LNG spot prices to 3-year highs. The Dow Jones fell over 400 points on March 2nd. Iraq's national power grid collapsed entirely. NATO was forced to shoot down Iranian missiles over Allied territory for the first time in history. France dispatched its nuclear carrier to the eastern Mediterranean. This conflict has now directly touched at least 10 countries. Let me give you the real cost of this war, because the human and economic damage extends far beyond what fits in a Pentagon press statement. Oil prices surged from below $70 a barrel in February to nearly $120 at their peak, settling around $90 today, a number that is still 40% above where it was before the war started. The Strait of Hormuz remains effectively closed. 20% of global oil transits that waterway. 50% of global urea and sulfur, the building blocks of fertilizer, moves through there too. The UN World Food Program has already warned that this conflict is driving significant long-term increases in global food prices. When fertilizer supply chains are disrupted, food becomes more expensive not next year but now, and the countries most exposed are not wealthy nations with strategic reserves. They are food-insecure populations in sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia that were already at the edge of their capacity. Former IMF chief economist Maurice Obstfeld called this the nightmare scenario, the exact outcome that had deterred U.S. planners from this action for decades. CSIS estimated the first 100 hours of Operation Epic Fury alone cost $3.7 billion. 8 American service members have been killed, about 140 wounded. Iran has struck at least 27 U.S. bases across the region. Over 2,000 people are confirmed dead across Iran, Lebanon, and Israel combined. Over 742 confirmed Iranian civilian deaths by March 3rd, according to human rights activists in Iran. UNESCO issued a statement after a strike damaged the Golistan Palace, a World Heritage Site, on March 2nd. These are the facts behind the 5,000 target headline. In my view, the Pentagon made 3 significant errors. The first was assuming that destroying targets at scale would break Iran's will. History argues against this. The second was entering the war without a credible plan for what happens when Iran closes the Strait of Hormuz, the most predictable and most devastating response available to Tehran, and one they used immediately. The third, and most consequential in my opinion, was underestimating Iran's intent to target not just military assets, but the entire economic infrastructure of the Gulf and the global supply chain. You can destroy Iran's navy. You cannot bomb the Strait of Hormuz back open. That requires diplomacy. And as of today, Iran's foreign minister has said that door is closed. Trump's own statements about the war's timeline have whipsawed global oil markets by themselves. He said it was a 4-week operation, then said it was very complete, pretty much, then suggested peace talks might be possible. China, which gets 40% of its oil through the Strait of Hormuz, has been publicly pushing for a ceasefire, while U.S. intelligence simultaneously suggests Beijing may be quietly preparing to supply Iran with financial assistance and missile components. That is a geopolitical dimension of this conflict that hasn't received nearly the attention it deserves, and it could fundamentally change the war's trajectory. Here is what I believe, stated plainly. This war was sold as a decisive solution to a decades-long problem. The reality, 11 days in, is a conflict that has closed the world's most important oil waterway, pushed global food security toward crisis, pulled 10 nations into the fight, cost billions of dollars in its opening days, And has Iran still launching weapons after over 5,000 strikes? When the Pentagon promises its most intense day yet on day 11, that is not a sign of a mission nearing completion. It is a sign that something in the original calculation didn't account for the full picture of what Iran actually is as an adversary. And the people paying the cost of that gap in the calculation are not only the ones in the conflict zone, they are families in South Asia paying more for food, small businesses absorbing fuel cost increases, economies on the margins of stability that can't easily absorb a 40% oil price spike. Those people didn't vote on this war, but they are living with its consequences every single day. That is my take on this. Now, I want yours. Do you think 5,000 strikes was the right call? Do you think Iran can be broken by continued air pressure, or have they found a strategy that outlasts the bombing? Do you think the world was ready for the economic consequences of this conflict? Drop your answer in the comments. I read everyone, and the debate that happens there is genuinely some of the sharpest analysis on this platform. If this gave you a fuller picture of what's happening, share it. Put it in a group chat. Post it somewhere it'll reach people who only got the headline version. Subscribe to Unlocked History Hub if you haven't already, and we'll see you in the next one.